clinical social worker. Again, curator of the G.Taylor Show, and we're talking about Black Fatherhood. This is part two. Had some technical difficulties. My mic was dying. It's late. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? We'll figure it out. But what I was saying before my mic died and stuff was happening was that I started going to therapy and I started to really go deep dive into some of the stuff that I was dealing with as a black dad, as a black father, and how that was spilling out into my personal life, but also my affecting me and my family. And I talk about that some in my book, Refresh the Journey, Find Peace. If you haven't read that, please go get that. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, where I kind of go through it's a self help memoir that I go through some of my mental health and grief and loss episodes that I dealt with. Excuse me, but you know, one of the things that I really, really, appreciated about therapy and had the opportunity to explore was not only my relationship with my father at the time and what we was going through, how the divorce of my parents affected me, but then also how some of the things connected to my parents, right? And how I, have responded to that, is coming out in how I parent my kids. And so the rifts that may have been happening between, me and my parents at times, has come up, and just really processing that. I've appreciated the fact that I was able to, get to the root of some of my anger, some of my depression, my anxieties, my fears, right? Because there's always fears as us as parents where we fear we want the best for our child. We want to protect our child. We want to shelter our child sometimes from the world because we know how cruel it can be. And then we have grasped that reality that we can't really save them from the world. We can only equip them to navigate the world, and we can pray and hope that we have given them the tools and equipped them with the necessary skill set to be able to navigate the world and the challenges that will come forth, because we know the challenges, we know the pitfalls, and we want to, if there's a puddle right there with water in it, we want to put something over top of the puddle, so they can walk right over and won't have no issues, not knowing that that might stifle their growth and development and how they navigate this world. And so it gave me the ability to process all of these different things, my anxieties and fears, my fears around being a parent, going back to how that started with me when I first found out that my wife was pregnant with my daughter, and the anxieties and chest pains and high blood pressure and stress of thinking about it all that came out of nowhere, dealing with, how am I going to, take care of this child, right? And even though I had a solid job and had got out of, finished my master's degree, there was still, stress and anxiety around that. So, what I wanted to kind of drive home today is just the understanding of that when it comes to being a black father, right? We are we are out here. We are doing an amazing job. And I want to tell you that, brother, that you are doing an amazing job. And it's okay to sometimes feel like you don't know what you're doing. Because a lot of times we don't know a lot of us don't know what we're doing, but we just keep showing up. We keep learning, we keep growing. And we keep trying to make sure that we put our children at the forefront of what we're doing. But get familiar with yourself, right? Ask yourself the hard questions. Learn about yourself. You know, take that time to be introspective of who you want to be as a man, but also who you want to be as a father to your kids. What do you want your legacy to be for your kids, right? What are your non-negotiables, right? What are your values? What are your morals? What are the things that you stand on, you pride on? What are the things that you want your children to build off of? What do you want to leave for them, right? And it's some tough questions to ask because there's that morality piece in there that some of us don't want to wrestle with. Some of us don't want to fathom and think about. But guys, we getting older. We can't outrun father time, right? And so we have a limited amount of time on this world, on this earth, to make the most impact you can possible, on your family, your children, your loved ones, your community, and we have to make the best of it, right? And we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to do it well all the time, but we have to have some form of foundation to lay, right, in order to build off of and grow from. And if you're always in a state of learning and growing, then you're fine. If you're in a state of learning and growing, you're fine. You're executing and you're implementing, you're fine. You're doing what you need to do. But we can't do any of that until we understand and learn about who we are as a person, right? What we want to be and what we want to instill in our kids, right? And how do we respond to our kids? I think that's the biggest piece is understanding like your response to your kids. You want your child and your child to respect you. You want your child to be able to come to you and talk to you about anything. You want your child to, know that you're a safe space, right? But are you actively within yourself practicing what you preach? Because if you're not practicing what you preach, then it's hard to execute or show, right, what you want from that child, what you want from that child, to do, what their behavior should look like, right? Because I'm telling you right now, man, your children are watching your every move and your every step. As much as you think they are not, they are watching it every move and every step from the time they are born, from the time they grow up. So again, the things that you ask of them, are you modeling those same behaviors? Are you speaking those same words? Are you engaging in those same actions that you want from your children? And if that's not the case, then we're having there's a disconnect. There may be a disconnect, I will say, that might impact the behaviors or the responses from your children that you're looking for, but it's not lining up with what you actually want. And I think sometimes we have to take the time to ask ourselves, what type of parent do I want to be? What are my values? What I stand on? What I believe in? You know, what are these things? And after we get through all of that, okay, what does my child need? I take a lot of time sometimes to observe, right? And I know it's hard to observe and to sit still, right? But sometimes you have to observe, right? Observe before you speak, observe before you react. If you take that one moment and one still moment to just observe, it'll show you so much and tell you which way you need to go in reference to how you respond to parenting your child. I don't do a lot of yelling. If I get to that point of yelling, then everybody knows it's a problem in the household. I don't do a lot of yelling. I've never spanked my kids at this point. Um, I never had to, right? I never, you know, thought about even, and I grew up being spanked, right? And I felt as though as a person that, you know, I think I made out pretty well at being spanked, but I didn't want to do that for my kids. And being a clinician and being a researcher is like there's no things don't add up. So if I want to make sure that my child is able to understand why she's being disciplined, what are the consequences of her action, what I'm saying, we have to communicate, we have to talk it through, we have to you know work through that thing. That has to be communicated. That's not going to be communicated for me through the spanking. uh and also, if I want her to understand how to manage her emotions, to work through hard situations, to manage difficult situations, then I have to be more aware and intentional on how I show her what dad is doing and moving through stressful situations, through emotional challenges. I have to, make sure I'm intentional with my energy and my mood on how I respond to her. I could be having a bad day. I could be stressed out about finances or stressed out about work, right? But that gives me no reason to take it out on, her, or not respond to her in a healthy manner, because I'm not doing my due diligence, or life is just be life. Now, granted, y'all, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect in this parenting thing. I'm not perfect in this fatherhood thing. I make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, and I try to be better every single day. Again, kind of going back to what we said earlier. But I felt, I've been sitting on this fatherhood episode for months, where I felt as though brothers need more opportunity, more content to talk about, ways on, to know that they're not alone in their parenting journey. And so, and it is a challenge. It's a challenge, and it takes time, it takes effort, it has to be intentional. We got a lot of moving parts and things that we're doing on a daily basis that makes it hard to be intentional, and be on our best P's and Q's all the time when working, when dealing with our kids. And sometimes we're not going to get it right. Sometimes we're going to, fail at it sometimes. But again, keep learning, growing, setting intentions, and being better, is you're in the right place. And so, again, learning that and learning your child, observing your child. How does your child respond to stress? Right. And sometimes you might say, well, I respond to stress this way, so they got to respond to stress that way. And that's the only way I know how to deal with stress. So they got to inherit that as well. And that's not the case. Right. Me and my children have two different lives. Right. And so I work my butt off. Me and my wife work our butts off to make sure that they have a certain life, but they have certain privileges that we didn't have as growing up. You know what I'm saying? So, and so their response to certain things is a lot different than our response to it, right? Got to be aware of that. You got to know that. You got to know your child's things. You got to know their quirks. You got to know their inner workings. You got to know how they respond to strangers. You have how they respond to stressors, how they respond to school, how they respond to teachers, how they respond to other kids they play with, how they respond when they don't get their way. Because you know how when they don't get their way, it's a whole big thing. But what do they do when they don't get their way? And then helping them along those teachable moments, not yelling at them, not screaming at them, because yelling and screaming ain't gonna do nothing. They don't know no better. And really, honestly, yelling and screaming from adulthoods, adult to adult don't help nothing besides, you know what I'm saying, we just shouting to the top of our lungs. And sometimes, sometimes you gotta yell at the adult to get stuff together. Sometimes you gotta yell at your kid to make sure they get it. But when we talking about teachable moments, you just scaring your child more or less, right? And who's the adult here, right? Who's been here longer? Gotta think about that. So, understand it, but you don't know any of that if you don't take the time to be intentional and observe your kids. Also, the other conversation is talking to your children, just talking to your kids and just learning about the things that they're interested in. It's gonna feel sometimes that it's boring. They feel like it's a ruminating story, a big long story with imagination all over the place, but there is, actual good content in there that lets you learn and know about your child. I just had a conversation with my daughter, last weekend, because I felt as though like there was like a disconnect, or felt like we was just missing each other at some point. And we had a weekend where we were together, and I just, we just kind of just, did the whole thing about, hey, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? What things you like, what you don't like. We did that. And it seems very cheesy, very, what are we doing? What are we talking about? But I was very enlightened because I found out she didn't know exactly what I do as a social worker. She don't know my job description, and she goes, she knows what my wife does because she goes to school with her, but she don't know what I do on a daily basis. She know I do YouTube stuff, but she don't know what I do on a daily basis, and then so we had that conversation, and then she's changed. She's changing, like she's changing from my little girl from she's grown up now, and from my 5, 6 year old to preteen time, and she's developing her own likes and things that she likes and things she doesn't like, and we having that conversation. But it was, I felt relieved to at least know that, oh, okay, I caught the change, right? Like, cause I could have looked up and she done been a whole different person, but I could see it. I could see it all summer, y'all. I could see it her shifting. Like, this ain't the same my same little girl anymore. This is my, my she's still my little girl, but you can see the shift. I can see the shift in personality, the body language, the conversations, the intellect just shifting. I said, "Oh, let me get in front of this before so I can learn." And I learned a lot. Learned a lot in that little conversation. So, man, taking the time to just play with your children, watch a movie with them, watch their favorite movies. She had me watching some of these Disney movies last week. It was just musicals and hearts and rainbows, all type of stuff. And I was just like, oh my goodness. But I did it because I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to be not even learn. I didn't even want to learn. I just wanted to just know what she likes. You know what I'm saying? And say, you want to watch a movie? Let's watch a movie. And so, you just do those different things. And again, sometimes I feel like we don't have enough time, right? We might got to go to work. We got to work overtime to get this money. We got to, pay for this, pay for that. We got to run around, do this. We got to take care of family members. We got to go do this. We got to do that. We got to take friends, wife, loved one, girlfriend, spouse, whatever. We got to make sure she good. And it feels like we don't have enough time to slow down and be intentional. But I promise you, one of the best things you can do when you are raising your kids is time, time. I don't care how hard you grinding. I don't care how hard you working and hustling. Time, time, time. Because time is going to give you the answers that you need on how to be a great Black father. So I hope this was helpful for you, man. I hope this was a good kind of inspirational feel good. I kind of wanted to get into, I didn't want to really get too much into the deficit piece, but more in the strengths piece of what we can do to be better and continue to sharpen our sword at times. You know what I'm saying? So like, share, subscribe to the show, the podcast, the G.Taylor Show. Make sure you subscribe, share with a loved one, share with a brother. If you know a brother that's struggling with fatherhood and just quite not understanding, share this episode with them, and hopefully it helps bless them on their fatherhood journey and gives them tips on how to being more intentional with their parenting, but also you know their relationship on how they view and see themselves as a father, right? So I hope that you have an amazing week. Everything goes well for you, and yeah, man, we'll talk soon. All right, take care. Have